Dr. Alexander Hayes was a name known in archaeological circles, respected for his groundbreaking work in ancient civilizations. For years, he had dedicated his life to uncovering the mysteries of the Egyptian pyramids, those colossal wonders that had perplexed humanity for millennia. But nothing in his career could have prepared him for the discovery that would change everything. It all started on a routine excavation near the Great Pyramid of Giza. The sands of time had covered so much, but with each new season, Alexander's team dug deeper into the rich history of Egypt. They had uncovered new tombs, hieroglyphs, and artifacts, but none of it was revolutionary. Until one day they hit something different. An unmarked slab, not recorded in any maps, had been uncovered beneath the surface, a slab that seemed to defy logic. Its edges were too smooth, the material too unfamiliar. It had the weight of marble, but the markings were unlike any hieroglyphs Alexander had ever seen. After weeks of careful excavation, Alexander and his team broke through the ancient stone to reveal a hidden chamber, an untouched vault beneath the pyramids. "What is this?" one of his assistants muttered as the light from their torches illuminated the space inside. The walls were adorned with strange symbols that didn't resemble the Egyptian script. There were no hieroglyphs, no depictions of gods or pharaohs, only abstract, geometric patterns. As the last of the dust settled, they noticed something even more peculiar. Inside the chamber lay the remains of a figure, not human. It was unlike any creature Alexander had seen in any ancient text. Its body was elongated, with slender arms and legs, the skull much larger than any human's, with enormous black eyes that seemed to shimmer in the torchlight. But it wasn't just the creature that shocked Alexander. It was the technology surrounding it. There were glowing, pulsating panels along the walls of the chamber, similar to the ancient circuitry described in fringe theories of UFO encounters. These panels seemed dormant, but were arranged in a way that suggested some form of advanced technology, perhaps far beyond anything Earth had seen. A crackling silence descended over the room as Alexander and his team processed the implications. The remains in front of them were not of any known human civilization. The beings, whoever they were, had left something behind, something more important than gold or relics. A sudden shudder rippled through the floor, and Alexander felt his heart race. The chamber seemed to come alive. The dormant energy in the walls buzzed like electricity in the air. It was as if the pyramid had suddenly woken up. "I think we found something far bigger than we ever imagined," Alexander whispered, his voice filled with awe and fear. The discovery quickly made headlines worldwide. But for Dr. Hayes, the real work had just begun. He had secured the chamber's location, sealed off the excavation, and moved his research to a more secure facility. The world's attention was on the find, but his own focus was on deciphering the ancient symbols and understanding the technology they had uncovered. Months passed in what seemed like a blur, but the more Alexander studied the alien technology, the more he became convinced of one thing. The pyramids weren't just tombs. They weren't merely ceremonial structures. They were energy sources, power plants, designed by these extraterrestrial architects to harness energy and power, something far greater than anything humanity had ever conceived. The alien being's body was still in remarkably good condition, preserved by the pyramid's mysterious energy fields. Alexander had managed to remove small tissue samples, which were being analyzed by geneticists worldwide. They had concluded that the creature wasn't related to any known terrestrial species. The bones and physiology didn't match anything on Earth. But what really caught Alexander's attention were the glyphs, which, after weeks of intensive analysis, he began to decode. They told a story, one that hinted at the pyramid's true purpose. The first glyph showed an image of these alien beings, tall, pale-skinned with large black eyes, arriving on Earth from a distant star system. The second glyph depicted the construction of the pyramids, which the beings designed as beacons. But what they didn't realize, or perhaps deliberately didn't tell, was the true function of the pyramids. According to the text, the pyramids were built not just to honor gods or kings, but to act as enormous energy collectors, devices capable of harnessing the Earth's natural energy to power a spacecraft that had been stranded here millennia ago. The final glyph was the most chilling. It showed a massive, metallic ship hovering above the pyramids, its engines fueled by the very energy these ancient pyramids had collected. However, the ship had not been able to leave, and the beings had, instead, turned the pyramid into a dormant source of power, waiting for something. And that's when it hit Alexander. The pyramids were not just ancient monuments. They were the remains of an alien civilization's failed attempt to leave Earth. And they were now reactivating. Dr. Hayes, you need to see this. The voice of his colleague, Dr. Nadia Williams, broke Alexander's concentration. He turned to see her rushing into the lab, her face pale. What happened? He asked, already feeling the weight of her expression. The pyramids, they're reactivating. Something's happening. The team rushed to the command center where they had set up their most advanced equipment. Satellite data was being monitored, and a strange energy pulse had been detected emanating from the Great Pyramid of Giza. It wasn't just any energy, it was an electromagnetic signal, almost as if the pyramid was sending out a beacon. What does this mean? Dr. Williams asked, her voice trembling. I don't know, Alexander replied, staring at the screens. But I think we're dealing with more than just ancient history. We've uncovered a message. The pyramids had been silent for millennia, but now they were stirring. The energy readings were unlike anything on Earth, an alien signal that pulsed from the depths of the pyramid. Alexander's mind raced as he recalled the glyphs, the warning that the pyramids were designed as energy sources for something far greater. The thought was terrifying. If the pyramids were really powering an ancient ship, what would happen when that ship came back online? We need to get to Giza. Now! Alexander's voice was firm. He had a feeling that whatever was happening, it wasn't a coincidence. The pyramids weren't just waking up, they were calling for something. When Alexander and his team arrived at the base of the Great Pyramid, the energy readings were off the charts. The air felt heavy, electric, as if the ground itself was pulsing with an unnatural force. The nearby villagers, who had always seen the pyramids as ancient relics, now seemed uneasy. They whispered of strange lights and sounds coming from the structures at night, of glowing energy ripples seen at the pyramid's peaks. As night fell, Alexander and his team set up equipment to monitor the pyramids in real time. They were positioned at the edges of the site, cameras ready, equipment calibrated to capture any fluctuations in the pyramid's energy field. At exactly midnight, the first pulse of light erupted from the peak of the Great Pyramid. A brilliant beam shot into the sky, illuminating the desert around them. It was as if the pyramid had awakened, its ancient purpose coming to life after thousands of years of dormancy. What the hell is happening? One of Alexander's assistants gasped, staring up at the light. I think we've made contact, Alexander muttered, watching the sky light up. They're watching us. But that wasn't the only thing happening. As the light continued to pulse, the earth beneath their feet began to tremble. The pyramids were not just reactivating, they were sending out signals, their ancient power grids coming online. And somewhere, far off in the universe, something or someone was listening. The beam of light from the Great Pyramid continued to pulse into the night sky, bright and unyielding. The team watched in stunned silence, unsure whether they should flee or stay to investigate further. The energy field around the pyramid seemed to thrum with an otherworldly power, an electric hum that made the hair on the back of Alexander's neck stand up. Should we try to approach? Dr. Williams asked, her voice tight with tension. No, Alexander replied, shaking his head. We need to observe. The last thing we want is to provoke whatever is causing this. As they stood in the shadows, the beam shifted direction slightly, as if responding to some unseen force. Alexander could feel a deep vibration through his feet, almost like the pulse of the earth itself. It was undeniable now. The pyramids were reactivating, and whatever lay beneath them was stirring. The next day, the team returned to the chamber beneath the Great Pyramid. The air in the room felt heavier, charged with an electric tension. The alien beings' remains were still in the center, but now there was something different about them. The walls surrounding the chamber flickered with a strange light, their once dormant panels now illuminated. "Something's changing," Dr. Williams said, her voice barely a whisper. She approached the alien body carefully. "Look at this." The remains, once rigid and lifeless, now appeared to be shifting. The skeletal structure was subtly moving, as if the energy within the pyramid was reanimating it. Alexander stepped forward, his heart racing. "We need to understand what happened here. Quickly." By the third day, the pyramid's energy pulse had become stronger. Satellite images confirmed the signals had intensified, and the ground beneath Giza was vibrating at an increasing frequency. Alexander's team had gathered all the data they could, but something was missing. The alien text in the chamber, once thought to be a warning, now seemed to hint at a much larger truth. Something about the ship that had once been powered by the pyramids. "It's not just energy," Alexander muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The pyramids weren't meant to just collect power. They were designed to create a bridge, something to reach beyond Earth. The following night, as the pyramid's pulse reached its peak, strange phenomena began occurring across the world. Local disturbances, lights flickering, electrical malfunctions, unexplained weather patterns were recorded in countries as far away as Japan, Brazil, and Russia. It was clear that whatever was happening in Giza wasn't isolated. "We're dealing with something global now," Dr. Williams said, glancing nervously at the monitor screens. "It's not just here. The energy is spreading." The team's discovery was no longer just a local concern. They had unlocked a signal that was being heard all over the world. And with every passing moment, the pyramids seemed to be preparing for something, or someone. On the fifth day, Alexander received a cryptic message from an anonymous source. It was a recording of a voice, distorted but unmistakably human. "You've awoken them. They are watching. You must stop them before it's too late." "Who is this?" Alexander asked aloud, but the message provided no answers. The more he thought about it, the more he realized something terrifying. Whoever sent this message knew more than they were letting on. "We've made a grave mistake," he muttered to himself. "We've triggered something we don't fully understand." At dawn on the sixth day, the pyramid's energy had reached a critical mass. The glowing panels inside the chamber flickered violently. The walls hummed, and a low, rumbling sound filled the air, echoing through the desert. The chamber itself seemed to be alive, reacting to the pulse of the pyramid. In the midst of the chaos, something else caught Alexander's attention. The alien being's eyes were open. They shimmered in the dim light of the chamber, dark and unblinking. For a moment, Alexander felt as though the creature was staring directly at him. A deep, resonant voice, one that wasn't human, filled the chamber. "You have awakened the architects." As the days passed, the strange occurrences began to escalate. News outlets across the globe began reporting on the disruptions, natural disasters, electrical grid failures, and unexplained sightings in the skies. But there was one common thread. Every anomaly seemed to lead back to the pyramids. "We're being watched," Dr. Williams said one evening, pointing to the live feeds. A satellite image showed a strange, shifting shape hovering near the pyramids. It was far too large to be a weather anomaly, and far too deliberate. "Are we being monitored by the ship?" Alexander asked, his voice trembling with uncertainty. "Is it coming?" "We need to know what we're dealing with," Dr. Williams replied. "We need to figure out how to stop this before it's too late." By the seventh day, the energy fluctuations had reached dangerous levels. The entire pyramid complex had become an enormous power source, its energy radiating into the atmosphere in pulses that were growing stronger by the hour. Alexander and his team had no choice but to return to the chamber. The alien technology seemed to be responding, more alive with each passing second. The alien body, once still and lifeless, now seemed to be slowly regenerating. It wasn't just a corpse, it was transforming. "What is happening to it?" Dr. Williams asked, fear creeping into her voice. "I think it's coming back to life," Alexander said, his mind racing. This is how they recharged, how they came back after being stranded here. The pyramids were the key. As the team worked tirelessly to understand the technology, they uncovered a disturbing truth. The alien beings, known as the architects, had designed the pyramids to tap into the Earth's core energy. But their plan was far more sinister. The pyramids had been constructed as a massive energy relay, meant to power the architect's ship, an enormous vessel capable of intergalactic travel. The power source had been depleted over time, but now the pyramids were slowly reactivating, using the Earth itself as fuel. And once the ship was fully powered, the architects would return to reclaim their lost empire. What if we can't stop them? One of the assistants asked, fear evident in his voice. We have to try, Alexander replied, determination in his eyes. Before they come back. On the 8th day, something unimaginable happened. The energy pulse coming from the pyramid intensified dramatically, sending shockwaves through the earth. The sky above Giza crackled with lightning as a shape, massive and indistinct, appeared in the clouds. The ship was coming. The architects were returning. We're not ready, Dr. Williams whispered. We don't have the technology. We don't have the answers. Alexander stood at the edge of the pyramid, staring into the storm above. His heart raced, but there was no turning back now. They had to find a way to stop the architects before Earth became their new home. The sky above the Great Pyramid of Giza was a swirling tempest of black clouds, lightning flashing erratically, crackling with energy. The air felt thick, oppressive, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Alexander stood at the edge of the pyramid, staring up at the shifting mass in the heavens, feeling a deep sense of dread settle into his chest. It's coming, Dr. Williams said, her voice barely above a whisper. The ship, it's coming. But even as the team stood in shock, something even more unsettling began to happen. The pyramid beneath their feet seemed to shake. A low rumble echoed from the depths of the structure, reverberating through the ground, as if the entire pyramid was coming to life. This isn't just a ship coming, Alexander said, his voice hoarse with urgency. They've been here all along. The pyramids were never just power sources. They were anchors, a way for them to stay connected to their ship, to the outside world. They've been waiting for the signal. As the energy pulse surged to an unbearable level, the alien technology within the pyramid came to life. The glowing panels along the walls flickered, their lights shifting and rearranging. Symbols appeared, ones they had never seen before, morphing like a puzzle coming together. The words were unmistakable. The architects were preparing for something monumental. We have to stop this, Dr. Williams said, her voice trembling. The pyramid's energy is reaching critical levels. There's no time, Alexander replied, his mind racing. He looked around at his team, each of them as unsure as he was about what to do next. We need to get to the control room under the pyramid. There has to be a way to deactivate the power source. The journey into the depths of the pyramid's lower chambers was perilous. The stone pathways beneath Giza had always been labyrinthine, but now they seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. Every step felt as though they were walking deeper into an ancient, living machine. As they reached the chamber that housed the alien technology, Alexander's pulse quickened. The once dormant panels were now alive with energy. The alien body, the architect, lay on a slab in the center, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. It was no longer simply a corpse. It was a conduit, a link between the pyramid's energy and the ship waiting in the clouds above. The ship is almost ready to fully power up, Alexander said, his voice tight with fear. We don't have much time. Dr. Williams moved closer to the alien body, examining it carefully. This technology, it's like a transmitter. It's how the architects communicate with their ship. Suddenly, a low humming sound filled the chamber. The panels on the walls blinked erratically, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. The pyramid's energy was rising exponentially. Alexander knew they were dangerously close to a point of no return. Can we turn it off? One of the assistants asked, voice shaky. I don't know, but we have to try, Alexander replied. As Alexander reached for one of the glowing panels, the alien body stirred. The eyes, once dark, now glowed with a piercing, unnatural light. The team froze, their breath catching in their throats. The architects had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the activation. In an instant, the chamber went dark. The walls pulsed with bright, blinding light, and a low, resonant hum filled the air. The alien body shifted again, its skeletal form seeming to stretch and twist as if coming to life. "What the hell is happening?" Dr. Williams gasped, her voice filled with horror. I think it's waking up," Alexander said, his voice barely audible. Then a voice filled the chamber. Not from the alien body, but from the walls themselves, an alien voice, deep and resonant, vibrating the very air around them. "You have awoken us," the voice boomed, sending a chill down their spines. "The architects return. The time is now." The room fell into an eerie silence. Alexander's heart raced, but his mind fought to stay calm. This was it. The architects had returned, and the ship above was now fully powered. The moment they had feared for so long had arrived. "We need to get out of here. Now!" Alexander shouted, his voice urgent. But as the team moved toward the exit, the pyramid began to shift. The stone walls, once solid, groaned as if alive. The floor beneath their feet trembled violently, and a deep, resonant hum reverberated through their bones. "Alexander, what's happening?" Dr. Williams cried, her voice panicked. "The pyramid, it's not just reactivating," he said, horror creeping into his words. "It's transforming. It's turning into something else." Outside, the storm above the pyramid intensified. The clouds above began to twist, forming a massive, swirling vortex. The ship, the enormous vessel that had been dormant for so long, was now descending. It was enormous, its metallic surface gleaming as it cut through the storm clouds like a blade through water. The pyramid's energy beam was now a continuous stream, connecting the ship to the ground below. As the ship came closer, Alexander could see the shape more clearly. It was nothing like anything humans had ever encountered, sleek, angular, with markings that seemed to shift and change as it moved. It was the culmination of millennia of alien technology, far beyond anything Earth had ever imagined. "The architects are coming," Alexander muttered. "And there's no turning back now." Inside the pyramid, the alien body had fully reanimated. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and as it rose from the slab, it seemed to become more than just a figure. The being was alive in a way that defied human understanding. It was an entity that transcended the physical, a being of energy and consciousness, and it was aware of them. "We are the architects," the voice boomed, echoing in the chamber. "You have awakened us, and now you will serve us." Alexander backed away, his mind racing. "Serve you? We didn't wake you up on purpose. You were not meant to know," the voice answered. "But now that you do, there is no turning back. The ship is ready, and Earth will become ours once more." Outside, the storm reached its peak. The ship loomed above them, casting a massive shadow over the desert. The entire landscape seemed to shake as it settled into place. The pyramid's energy beam intensified, drawing even more power from the Earth's core. It was as if the entire planet was connected to the ship. "This is the end," Dr. Williams whispered. "We're not ready for this." "We may not be ready," Alexander said, his voice filled with grim determination. "But we don't have a choice." He turned to the rest of the team, his eyes steely. "We need to find a way to stop them. We have to destroy the connection between the pyramids and the ship. If we don't, Earth will fall." As the team made their way to the surface, the sound of the ship's engines filled the air, a deep, vibrating hum that seemed to penetrate everything. The massive craft above them began to lower, its metallic hull shimmering in the storm's glow. Alexander and his team knew they had little time. The ship's descent wasn't just a symbol of power. It was a harbinger of the architect's return. The planet was at the brink of invasion, and they had only one chance to stop it. But as they reached the base of the pyramid, the ground shook violently. The walls began to crumble, and the air was filled with the scent of burning ozone. The architects were preparing for something final, something that would change everything. And somewhere, deep inside the pyramid, the architect was waiting for them to make their move. The sky above Giza had become a twisted, churning mass of storm clouds, crackling with lightning and strange energy. The air felt thick with anticipation, as though something monumental was about to happen. The massive ship hovered overhead, its sleek surface reflecting the pale light of the energy beam that connected it to the Great Pyramid. The pyramid itself seemed to pulse with life, its energy field growing stronger by the second. "There's no turning back now," Alexander said, his voice grim. "We have to destroy the connection between the pyramid and that ship, or humanity won't survive." His team stood in front of the pyramid, faces drawn and determined. They had come this far, but the stakes had never been higher. The alien technology beneath their feet had already begun to reactivate on a global scale, sending pulses of energy to unknown locations across the world. They had no idea what would happen if the ship fully powered up. "We don't know if this will even work," Dr. Williams replied, her voice tense. She looked at the pyramid's glowing energy beam, the light pulsing rhythmically, as if it had a life of its own. "The ship is already using the pyramid's energy to power up. We need to sever the connection before it's too late." "We'll find a way," Alexander said, his voice filled with resolve. He motioned for them to move forward. "Let's go. Time is running out." The team entered the lower chambers of the Great Pyramid, where the alien body had been reanimated. The walls were alive with a low, humming energy, and the panels that had once been dormant were now glowing with a pulsing light. The air was thick with ozone, and the temperature had dropped to an unnatural chill. "Are we sure this is the right way?" one of the assistants asked, nervously glancing around. "The energy feels wrong." "We don't have much choice," Alexander replied, scanning the surroundings. "The deeper we go, the closer we are to the core of the pyramid. If there's any way to stop the connection, it's there." The alien body lay in the center of the chamber, still glowing with an eerie light. Its eyes were open now, and it seemed to be aware of their presence. Its skeletal form was partially disintegrated, but it was clear that the being was more than just a corpse. It was an energy conduit, a key to the pyramid's power system. Suddenly, the walls trembled, and a low growl resonated from the depths of the pyramid. The energy pulse grew stronger. They were running out of time. "We need to hurry," Dr. Williams said, her voice shaking. "The ship is almost ready." As the team continued to make their way deeper into the pyramid, the alien voice echoed in their minds once again. It was a low, resonant tone, like the sound of the earth groaning beneath their feet. "You have awakened us," the voice boomed. "The architects are eternal. You cannot stop what has already begun." Alexander's heart pounded in his chest. "They've been preparing for this moment for centuries," he muttered. "The pyramids were never just power sources. They were anchors. Anchors for their ship, for their return." The voice continued, its tone now more insistent. "The time is now. The ship will rise, and Earth will belong to the architects once more." "Can we stop it?" Dr. Williams asked, her voice tight with fear. "I don't know," Alexander replied, his thoughts racing. "But we have to try." He stepped forward, closer to the alien remains. There was a strange, magnetic pull emanating from the body, as though it was drawing energy from the pyramid itself. The closer they got, the more the air seemed to crackle with power. They were dangerously close to the heart of the pyramid now. The chamber ahead was the largest they had yet encountered. It was filled with strange, glowing panels that seemed to hover just above the floor, emitting pulses of energy that resonated with the beat of their hearts. In the center of the room, a massive spherical object hovered in midair, its surface covered in alien symbols that shifted constantly. This was it, the heart of the pyramid's energy system. "That's the core," Alexander said, all creeping into his voice. "That's what's powering the ship." The sphere pulsated, its energy growing stronger with each passing moment. They could feel the heat emanating from it, and the air around them seemed to vibrate with the intensity of its power. "We have to destroy it," Dr. Williams said, determination in her voice. "If we don't, the architects will come, and there's no stopping them." Alexander nodded. "But how do we destroy it?" The core seemed to respond to their words, its energy swirling faster, as if it was aware of their intentions. Suddenly, one of the panels on the wall flickered, revealing an interface covered in alien symbols. It was a control mechanism, one that could potentially disrupt the power flow. "Let's try this," Alexander said, stepping forward and pressing his hand to the interface. The symbols on the panel shifted and rearranged under his touch, and the ground trembled beneath them. The sphere pulsed again, brighter now, as if reacting to the disturbance. As Alexander worked on the control panel, Dr. Williams kept watch. The pyramid's energy was reaching unbearable levels, and the ground beneath them was shaking more violently with each passing second. "Be careful," Dr. Williams warned. "We don't know what will happen if you trigger the wrong sequence." "I don't have a choice," Alexander replied, his focus intense. His fingers danced across the panel, trying to decipher the alien script. Each time he pressed a button, the energy in the room fluctuated, and the core pulsed more aggressively. Suddenly, a blast of energy shot from the core, sending Alexander flying across the room. He crashed to the ground, his body aching with the force of the impact. The room was now filled with a deafening hum, and the alien voice boomed once again, louder than before. "You cannot destroy what was never meant to be destroyed," the voice said. "The architects are eternal. Your efforts are futile." The walls shook, and the glowing panels flickered erratically. Something was coming, something far worse than they had anticipated. The alien body in the chamber stirred again. It seemed to be growing, shifting, as if drawing power from the pyramid's core. The energy in the room intensified, and Alexander's team felt the air grow thick and oppressive. It's coming back to life," one of the assistants gasped. Alexander could see the alien body becoming more than just a corpse. It was transforming into something more. The skeleton expanded, and energy crackled around it, as if the being was absorbing the pyramid's power. The eyes glowed brighter, and for a moment, it felt like the room itself was holding its breath. "We need to stop it now," Dr. Williams said, her voice urgent. "If it completes its transformation, we won't be able to stop it." But before they could react, the alien being rose from the slab, fully reformed. It towered over them, its eyes glowing with malevolent energy. Its voice, once cold and distant, now had a clarity that resonated throughout the chamber. "You have failed. The architects are here." The ground trembled, and a wave of energy radiated outward, knocking the team back. The ship above them responded, its engines humming louder. The pyramid's energy beam intensified, now focused entirely on the craft descending from the storm above. The team scrambled to their feet, the alien presence now suffocating them with its intensity. The air felt charged with dark energy, and the walls seemed to close in on them. The architect, now fully reanimated, stared down at them with cold, unblinking eyes. "We cannot fight this," one of the assistants said, panic rising in his voice. "They're too powerful." "We don't have to fight," Alexander replied, his mind racing. "We need to outsmart them." He looked around at the chamber's glowing panels, trying to find a way to sever the power connection. If they couldn't destroy the architect, they had to shut down the pyramid's power. It was the only way to stop the ship from fully activating. The architect moved forward, its towering form casting a long shadow across the room. "You cannot defy the architects," it said, its voice filled with cold finality. Just as it seemed like all hope was lost, Dr. Williams spotted a weak spot in the core. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but like any system, it had its vulnerabilities. She rushed toward the panel, her fingers flying across the interface. "Alexander, help me," she shouted. "We can still disable it." Together, they worked to reroute the power from the core, forcing the pyramid's energy to dissipate. The walls shook violently as the pyramid's internal systems fought back. The architect screeched in fury as the power flow began to collapse. For a brief moment, the hum of the pyramid faltered. The ship above wavered, its descent slowing as the energy connection to Earth weakened. The energy beam from the pyramid flickered, growing weaker with each passing second. The ship above began to tremble, its hull groaning as though it were being pulled apart. The architect let out a final, piercing scream, and for the first time, there was a sense of hope. But the fight wasn't over. The ship's engines flared one last time, attempting to push through the barrier they had created. The pyramid's core was destabilizing, but it was far from destroyed. The team had moments, maybe seconds, to finish what they had started. With a final, collective effort, the team pressed the last button on the control panel. A surge of energy filled the chamber, and the pyramid's core collapsed. The ship above let out a low, mournful hum before it slowly began to fade, its energy dissipating into the storm clouds above. The ground beneath them shook one last time, and the pyramid's power beam flickered out completely. For a moment, the world stood still. It was over. The architects, for now, were gone. The team had succeeded, but the true battle was far from finished. The pyramids, and their hidden power, were just the beginning.